Hey, welcome back to the, well, I haven't made it out to the shop yet today. So today we are going to take these knives out of the tempering oven, do the finish grind on them, and start working on the handle fittings. I'm getting kind of a late start today, so I don't know if I'll get these finished today or not, but we're gonna give it a go and see what happens. So let's get into the shop and let's have some fun. As always, we want to take plenty of safety precautions, eyes, ears, and lungs. It can be a little hard to understand what I'm trying to say when I'm wearing this, so I'll try to avoid talking with the mask on my mouth.
Lemon jello is not a favorite. It's, I prefer orange or red.
So that's the first pass. Check them out. Blades are nice and shiny, looking really good. Really J.J. Abrams going on there with the lens flares. That's awesome. So the blades are really, really nice and shiny. So now I'm gonna put them in the acid and give them a little test etch. Here goes nothing. We'll let them sit in there for a few minutes and let the magic happen, and then we'll take a peek. Let's sneak a peek, shall we? Look at that, that's nice. Now it's time to get to working on these handle fittings. Yeah, lots of work yet to do. The trick to getting a really good fit up is to make sure not to make the hole too big. And I just broke an end mill because I'm terrible as a machinist, but that's why I bought 2 end mills, so hopefully I won't break this one. The rest of the way, I'm going to clamp the blade up in my vise, using some leather to keep the vise from scratching up my blade. And then I'm going to do a combination of hammering and filing to get this guard to fit perfectly flat, perfectly flush, perfectly straight, and to seat nicely up against the ricasso of my blade. To do that, I'm going to use this little tool here, which slides nicely over my tang and allows me to apply persuasion to this. Wow, that's all it took, at least for blade number 1. So now you can see I've got a nice, clean, nice, tight fit. Everything's nice and flush. So if you don't have a little tool like this, all this literally is a couple of pieces of quarter by 3/4, actually maybe 3/16 by 3/4, welded together with a spacer in the middle. You can always just use a piece of square tubing. And you couldn't use this piece of square tubing, it's not big enough. But you could use a piece of square tubing and it would do the same thing. The guards of the sub-hilt are fit up nicely. These blades are going to be really, really beautiful with a really dark finish with some nice contrast, so it's going to have almost like a chrome and black motif, and so it makes sense for me to use a really dark wood to go with this. And since I'm using steel hardware, and since I'm making knives out of safety deposit boxes, I thought it would be just only appropriate to use catalogs. Get it? Locks, catalogs, because it's a safety deposit box. I know it's a terrible joke. Catalogs is a really nice dark wood, and it's going to match up nicely with what I want to do here. I've got a couple of big pieces. Catalogs is also sometimes referred to as Royal Mexican Ebony. I was first introduced to it from a missionary friend of mine named Wampa, who lives in Guatemala, and sent me some as a gift. And so I just fell in love with this stuff. It's really, really cool wood. So that's what we're gonna use for the handles on these. I need to cut a spacer just for the finger well in between the guard and the sub-hilt. And then I need a larger piece for the area where the through tang goes. So I'm gonna mark those out, rough these out, and then start drilling for those shapes. So that's the next step. It's a lot easier to drill these holes while I've got the blocks in more or less square form. Now the trick becomes getting these two holes to line up and meet, and then making it just big enough for the tang, and then that hinged bolt to fit in. So we're gonna do that by hand. Now these pieces are threaded, they're tapped, and the next thing that I need to do is actually create what in woodworking would be called a half-lap joint. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to cut off part of the bolt like this, grind it down halfway, drill a hole, match that to a grind on the very tip of my tang, drill a hole, and then that will be riveted to a stainless pin, which will not let it come apart, and then that will let it rotate in position. It'll fit through the hole, and then everything will tighten up nicely. And the great thing about this is that until I rivet that pin in place, I can take the pin out and then assemble, disassemble the handle so that I can get my rough shapes done. So the way this works is you have a half-lap joint here, and the bolt is pinned and riveted. It's not pinned, or it's pinned now, but it's not riveted. So that way I can take it on and off, because these are slotted to fit very tightly and I want to be able to take those off. But this allows this pin to sit perfectly centered up with my tang. It allows it to rotate. And then as we slide everything together, this lets this bolt move just enough to line up with my pommel. So this is what I'm going for. I've got everything rough fit together. And now I can actually start sculpting this handle, getting everything to its final shape, making sure that all my joints are nice and tight. Everything's ready to start putting together, and the way that I'm going to do these handles is one piece at a time. That way I can check the fit on everything and make sure that everything lines up and goes very, very smoothly as I put it together. This will make it easier to keep everything clean as I put the various pieces together. I'm going to start by fitting and gluing up the front guard. Then I'll probably do a little sanding on that just to rough out the shape around the outside edges a little more. The front is already finished. Then I'll go to the spacer, then I'll go to the sub hilt, then I'll go to the handle, then I'll go to the pommel, and just work my way slowly back. Push down on that so I can clamp onto the tang and then push the guard down on it. Now that the guards are attached, I can begin the process of assembling the rest of the handle. I'm going to replace my brass pins with some ones that I've made out of stainless steel. It'll be a little bit stronger than the brass, and that'll let me glue everything up. The compression from the pommel being screwed on is going to push everything together nice and tight, and then we'll let these dry for a day or two. What I'm doing here is riveting these pins on so that it will actually be impossible for this to come off, which means that these pieces are now locked in place. I now have to glue them on and get the rest of my handle fit up. So that's what I'm doing here, but this ensures a nice tight fit, and this is never going to come apart. Glued up. Everything's looking really good, nice and tight. And so now I just gotta let that glue dry. It's been a couple of days since we glued these up, and so now it's time to take them into the grinding room, shape these handles up, get them roughed out, get them to a nice, probably around a 400 grit finish, and then finish up the rest of it with hand sanding. So let's take them into the grinding room and get those shaped up. The handles are sanded up to around 400 grit, and because of the way these handles are made, now is time for hand sanding. There's just nothing for it. It has to be done. So we're gonna start with probably 200 grit and then work our way up from there. So let's clamp them up in the knife vise and singing, I love hand sanding. Throw that grinder in the trash box, baby. I love hand sanding, 'cause carpal tunnel agrees with me. Ow! Ow! Okay, so that's one down, one to go. That's a lot of hand sanding. Okay, that's 2 down. That took a long time. I had to go back and clean up a few scratches that I had missed here in the guard area. But I got those cleaned up, and I'm really, really happy with the way that these two knives are looking. There we go. Everything's looking really, really good. These are very, very close to being a perfectly matched set. The pattern looks great. I love this dark wood with the bright steel. So I'm gonna do a little more spit and shine on these, and then we'll touch mark them, make some sheaths, and sharpen them. These knives are looking great. I can't wait to show them to you complete, but I've still got to make sheaths for both of them, and I'm not going to sharpen them until I make the sheaths for them. That way I can test fit the knife and not have to worry about cutting myself if I slip or do something silly. So I'm going to make some sheaths. I'm just going to time lapse and show you that, and then we'll sharpen these blades, and you'll get to see the finished product these have turned out. Oh, I'm so excited. I can't believe these started as safety deposit box doors, and now they look like this. So let's make some sheaths, and let's finish these knives up. All right, the sheaths are done, and now I just got to sharpen these blades, and yeah, then they're done. So let's go to the grinding room and sharpen them. So that's it for these. I could not be happier with the way that these two blades turned out. They are absolutely gorgeous, and to think that they started out as the doors to a safety deposit box from a demolished bank, that's just awesome. I love redeemed steel. I love taking something useless, discarded, and reclaiming it and turning it into something priceless. These knives are amazing. They're going to go to a couple of really special folks who are really going to treasure these. So I'm really, really excited to get these done and get them out the door. So thank you guys for watching this video and going on this journey with me. Like and subscribe. If you'd like to place a custom order, I'm taking those right now. So I'd love to make a series of videos maybe about your order next. So thank you guys so much, and yeah, catch me in the next one. We'll see you soon.